Alright, everybody, looks like Boris Johnson is the British frontrunner now and the favorite to win the election. Though many of his opponents are trying to drag his ass down into the mud. As there are a host of candidates to replace Theresa May as Prime Minister, they all launched their campaigns on Monday, promising to solve the turmoil of Brexit and taking shots at frontrunner Boris Johnson. Many stepped down as leader of the ruling Conservative Party on Friday, having failed, or May stepped down as leader of the ruling Conservative Party on Friday, having failed 3 times to win Parliament's support for European Union divorce deal. That was supposed to steer the country smoothly out of the bloc and deal with Britain's biggest political crisis in a generation. The nomination as a placer had to be submitted on Monday, and the party's 1922 committee, which is running the contest, said 10 candidates had achieved the required support of at least 8 of the Conservatives' 300-plus elected lawmakers. An 11th, Sam Gyamma, withdrew shortly after. Before the announcement saying he had not been able to build sufficient support, he was the only one to support holding a second Brexit referendum. Conservative lawmakers will hold their first round of voting on Thursday to begin narrowing the field. If I get through, which I am sure I will actually, to the final against Mr. Johnson, this is what I will say to him. Mr. Johnson, whatever you do, don't pull out. That sounds like a piece of advice you'd give to a friend of yours about whether or not he should get his girlfriend pregnant. Said Environment Minister Michael Gove, who scuppered Johnson's 2016 leadership bid by pulling his support at the last moment to run himself. I knew you have before, and I know you may not believe in your heart that you can do it, but the Conservative Party membership deserves a choice. You know, all the hopefuls promised they could solve the Brexit conundrum, but they eluded many in 3 years of EU talks and just 3 months between the new leader being chosen at the end of July and the current exit date of October 31st. Halloween. But is it going to be a trick or a treat? From my conversations with European leaders, it is clear to me there is a deal to be done. They want us to come up with proposals, current Foreign Minister Jeremy Hunt had said. The Brexiteer you can rely on. Dominic Raab, who quit as Brexit minister over May's divorce deal, said he too could secure a new agreement, promised the United Kingdom would leave the EU on October 31st, even if that meant reverting to basic World Trade Organization trade terms. Others, including Johnson, have made the same promise to leave on time, even if it means giving up on a deal with the EU that would smooth the transition. The uncertainty has hit Britain's economy, which shrank by 0.4% in April. Official figures showed on Monday a bigger drop than any economist had forecast. In a Reuters poll last week, Johnson is not only the bookmakers' clear favorite, but according to polls, the most popular, with the 160,000 party members who will ultimately make the choice. He did not hold a high-profile campaign launch on Monday, but his rivals lined up to take pot shots at him, and his pledge to raise the point at which workers paying a 40% income tax to £80,000 annual pay from £50,000. One thing I will never do as Prime Minister is to use our tax and benefit system to give the already wealthy another tax cut, said Gove, another frontrunner who was trying to get his own campaign back on track after admitting taking cocaine when he was a young journalist. Oh my. We can't have a former coke addict in the British government. Oh no. Can you imagine what it would be like over here in America if one of our politicians admitted and provably admitted that they used to do cocaine? Our attitude toward pot's pretty liberal, but when it comes to cocaine, whew, at least you never hear the end of it from your grandpa. But saying, you guys over there saying you need a serious leader, others took an aim at Johnson, a flamboyant former London mayor, alluding to past criticism that he favored style over substance and failed to grasp details. Yes. Well, look, if I were British, I'd vote for Boris Johnson. I think he's got your best interests at heart. The EU has screwed you guys royally, up the butt, no lube. Do you get the word picture I'm trying to paint here? And ultimately, EU politicians have been historically to this point more concerned with their own interests than actually representing what their people want from them. I mean, let's not forget the lesson that France taught the world about, globalism. And don't try and tell me that the EU is not a microcosm for globalism. If it's not, then what the fuck is it? Yeah, I understand that it started out as like a bunch of bilateral trade agreements that just started promulgating and multiplying and da-da-da-da-da, etc., etc. However, that does not mean that it is not a legitimate governing bloc led by Brussels, of all places. And then sometimes thinking they can dictate to us Americans what we can and cannot say because it affects what happens over there in our countries. We're banning your memes and so forth. Ugh, censorship. It's a disease. It spreads like a virus throughout the entire human race. Your EU politicians do not like you. They do not represent you. They only want what they want. That's how they look, to me, anyway. I'm calling it like I see it. Anyway, another thing you British folks should be really worried about, especially considering who it is, our good old friend Mike Pompeo, our wonderful Secretary of State here in the United States, is now meddling. He wants to meddle with your guys' election over there. He promises U.S. will try to stop Jeremy Corbyn from being elected. The article reads, "It looks like that much lauded special relationship between the UK and the US is so special that the latter now appears to believe it should be offered a significant say in who leads the former." U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has been caught admitting that Washington will do its level best to prevent UK Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn from becoming Britain's Prime Minister. What's a bit of meddling between special friends? In a recording leaked to the Washington Post, Pompeo told a gathering of Jewish leaders that a Corbyn premiership is a real possibility, and that he could manage to run the gauntlet and get elected, something which the Trump administration seems to be dead set against. Now, of course, if it doesn't suit the Trump administration's bottom line, then it's just not happening, is it? Pompeo was apparently responding to claims of anti-Semitism that have been leveled at the Labour leader. You know what? Show the quotes. Show me proof. Otherwise, I'm not buying it. Lots of people would accuse that, and it often turns out to be false. But he promised that the U.S. Won't wait until Corbyn is elected to push back, because things can get a little tricky once an election has already inconveniently taken place. It's too risky and too important and too hard to interfere once it's already happened, he said. Needless to say, the Labour Party didn't take too kindly to Pompeo's intervention, calling it an entirely unacceptable interference in the UK's democracy. The Conservative Party has been notably quieter on the intrusion into British politics, which is odd since Theresa May's Tories are usually so quick to denounce foreign interference in domestic affairs of other nations, except their own. Not to mention, like everyone else, they like to boogeyman the hell out of Russia. Top U.S. officials offering advice and opening on Britain's national politics has become somewhat normal in recent weeks, with even Trump himself admitting he found left-wing Corbyn to be a negative force, and announcing his strong preference for former Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson to take up the mantle after May's departure. The leaked comments ignited a storm of criticism across social media, as always, especially on fucking Twitter, with many pointing out the irony of the U.S. intervening in UK politics, despite constantly warning against so-called Russian interference in other parts of the world. Oh, when the Russians do it, it's bad, but when we do it, it's just fine. Like, yeah, right. Yeah. Like, you guys should worry. Mike Pompeo is a pretty powerful voice and is a loud voice in our foreign policy. He could cause something. So, I'm warning you guys, like, right now, like, don't you even dare even think about listening to anything Mike Pompeo has to say. Trust me, it will not be worth it. Make your decisions for yourselves. Or as that famous Beatles song said, I think it was George Harrison, he wrote the song, says, what was it? Do what you want to do and go where you're going to. Think for yourself because I won't be there with you. That is what I would have to say to you on this matter. That is exactly what I would have to say. Anyway.